Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello, and welcome to Netflix versus Cinema. My name is Tosin, and I'm the host based up in the Midlands, in Worcestershire. And joining me, as always, on the Isle of Wight are Sharon.
Hello.
And Sean.
Oh, yeah.
Now today we are going to be talking through some things that we have seen this week. We have I Care a Lot, which was on Amazon Prime. We might mention something about Derry Girls, which one of us has finally caught up with. And we have Tribes of Europa on Netflix, which is something I'm actually interested in. I haven't watched that, but and something called Candy Jar. And also, Sean has gone into his usual, I'm going to go and find weird and wonderful things that nobody has ever thought about. And TV shows and films that you've never even heard of. With something called Walkaway Joe and another thing called Sea Fever. And we also, after last year, last week, in which I was shocked at how much I like Greenland, we have Sean giving me a sanity check because he actually went and watched Greenland, and we're going to find out if I actually did eat some bad cheese, and if there was something wrong with me that I enjoyed a Gerald Butler disaster movie that much. So you might think about the title of our show, Netflix Cinema. And you might wonder, okay, what happens with no cinema? Even though now in the UK, the government have given a roadmap that they didn't mention cinema, but reading between the lines, it seems to say that we will have a summer season of cinema coming back.
It's looking more
That's
like
what it seems.
it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, yeah, because, I mean, they didn't, what they said, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but they said all legal social restrictions to be lifted as long as nothing else goes wrong.
Yes, that's the code still, isn't it? As long as.
Yeah, as long as nothing else goes wrong, which is why, unlike some people, I'm not booking any holidays.
No.
Anytime.
No, that's it.
Soon.
Tempting fate, that, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. When I heard that, holiday bookings have gone through the roof, I was like, what the heck is wrong with people? Have they learned nothing from the last year? Yeah. So as long as, but they said it's June the 20-something. And I'm thinking, well, but if all legal social distancing things are lifted, then that means cinemas can come back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's specifically listed on one of them, isn't it? I think they say including cinemas.
Theatres.
I think it's not the June. I think it's before June that the cinemas are in the. I think they're in the May bunch, aren't they?
Ooh. Of course, that's the other lot. Like some of the restrictions are lifted on my birthday, aren't they?
Yeah, they've staggered every 5 weeks. But I think that 5 weeks could be pushed back if their figures aren't in the right place. I think it's got to be led by the science, and it's got to be led by what the figures are.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what you would hope. But, I mean, so far in the last year, we've seen that some things are some things have been led by a wing and a prayer.
Yeah, and the economy, and people are pushing to get things open. You can understand it, because if people aren't spending any money, then the tax man isn't getting his share, then the business aren't getting their share, and we're all tied up together, aren't we? We're all linked. The consumer, the producer, and the tax man. So and it all comes crashing down if one of those links in the chain break. But we can't be going back and forth into this cycle every winter, having to put our masks on as soon as the clocks change. I think it's going to be. You've got to do it right, haven't you? First time, really.
Well, you got to try. You got to try and do it right. And even though I think that there's going to be some sort of yearly thing with this, especially with the approach that has been taken in the UK, I think that there's going to be some sort of yearly thing. But hey, a bit like what I was just saying about churches and people saying things without them backing them up, I can say whatever I want, but we'll only find out around about winter time next year.
Have to wait and see.
We'll find out. We'll find out how whatever rubbish it is that I'm saying is actually coming. Right. So we were talking about cinemas. Yes, we usually go to cinemas, and hopefully, come May, we'll be able to go back into cinemas and actually start watching things again and start saying what it is that we do. But we see 3 films in cinemas, we see 3 things at home, and we say, where's the money been better spent this week? At the moment, we are not going to cinemas, obviously. We are just sitting at home watching things, having our viewing habits changed, and seeing what we come up with. So, first of all, and I know this is kind of like a break with tradition, I want to go back to Greenland. And I want to. We ended last episode talking about Greenland. Sean, you have now seen Greenland.
I have.
So tell me, put me out of my misery.
You
What
really,
did you think
really
of
want to
Greenland?
know, do you, Toes? Really, really want to know.
I really want to know.
Okay.
I really want to know if I.
Oh, well, if
I really want to know
must.
if.
You know how we feel about Gerard Butler, don't you?
Yes, yes.
I have to say, yes, I was impressed with this one.
Yeah?
I was, yes, I was. I thought, you know, that was. I mean, everything I think was plausible. I couldn't see anything that wasn't plausible in it. I mean, I think there was some really, really incredibly lucky coincidences with, like, shall we say, finding things and stuff like that. Which was a bit too,
I agree with you.
Which I thought, but I mean, it's still
Hollywood.
possible. It's still possible that could happen. You know what I mean? And it was all like, and I found that, you know, with the talking, when they were talking to certain people, sort of military people, whatever, and that you would perhaps find some people that might try and help, you know, or they might, but what I mean, it wasn't anything really, really stupid. Like, I thought a couple of times he could have done things a bit differently, but you know, he was okay, and it was pretty good. It was believable. There wasn't anything too silly, and I really, really enjoyed it, which is a good surprise. So yeah, you were spot on your review, Toes.
Yeah, it is. I'm still in shock, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it was a surprise, wasn't it? And it was. I must admit, it was. There's a couple of quite emotional scenes in it, actually. There were
massively emotional.
There's, you know, that one that I'm talking about, where it's like, oh, you know, you must have the one scene, you know, in the thing. When, well, you might.
Wait, it's you know, about finding somebody after like a journey of 100 miles.
That's
you
it.
Manage, I know what you mean.
And also on the way with some people, you know, you get some people that are not so nice, and you get some people that really, really, you know, show empathy and stuff like that. And there was, as I say, there was 2 or 3 bits where I was quite like, oh. Quite emotional, and I'm like, you know what I'm like, and I was thinking, oh my goodness me, look at this, that's quite good. Yeah, and he wasn't too bad at all, Gerard.
He was. I think this was him. He was essentially. I feel like this film was Gerard Butler, just sort of showing you guys. Okay, now let me just remind you people why I became a star. Before
bread.
Let me. What was that? Oh, bread. Okay, cool. Sharon's just rushing up to go get some bread. To get some bread out of the oven. But I think it was, there's a lot of it, like, it was almost seems like it's Gerard Butler going, let me remind you why I became a star in the first place. This wasn't a fluke. I didn't just sort of like, you know, fall out of bed and so he actually is a good actor.
Yeah.
Gerard Butler is a good actor.
So you were right on your review. I agree with you on your review. Spot on.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks. Okay, cool.
On about watching other things, just seeing that bottle of Jack Daniels or bottle of Scotch, whatever it is on the table, a film I did rewatch, and I mean, I think we reviewed it in one of our other things, but I did rewatch Flight again with
Denzel Washington,
with Denzel, and I mean, I often think, because you know, alcoholics, and I think in that, to me, that is an absolute terrific performance, really. From Denzel Washington in that film, yeah. So I thought I'd put that in just because I have rewatched. Sometimes you start to watch a film, obviously, with the Sky Movies thing, which is what I saw, Walkaway Joe and all that, you know. And I mean, as I say, Flight was on, and it was one that I ended up watching again anyway, which I probably wouldn't have if I'd have seen it and hadn't watched it. But I started watching it.
Yeah, you wouldn't have chosen to watch it.
Yeah. So there's some films that if you start watching, even though you might have seen them umpteenth times, you have to finish watching, you know.
Yeah. I think the Flight, the performance from Denzel Washington is a really, really good one in Flight. Right. Okay. So that's it. Now that we have a sanity check done, shall we get onto films from this week?
Yeah.
All right. Now let's see. Where shall we go? What are we going to kick off with? Now let's go. We've spoken Greenland. Let's see. Let's start off with Tribes of Europa on Netflix. So I have seen the thumbnail for this. What is this all about, Sharon?
Yeah, this is a European production. It's a German film. Oh, well, I think it's principally German. And I can best describe it as Hunger Games meets Mad Max meets Cabaret.
Ooh.
Now you see, from the trailer thing that I saw, for the thumbnail I saw, I would have guessed the first two. The third one is a bit of a curveball. Explain.
Explain. Yeah, because it's set in the future. I think it's something like 2074, 30 years after an event called Black December, which is basically was like an EMP, but not quite. It basically just all technology failed at the same time, but some technology still works. So they can still get some like electricity to work, and they can still get some things. But at the time, technology just died, and then within a couple of decades, I mean, it wasn't instant. A couple of decades, people basically lost international communications, or lost power of flight, and so the world contracted. And people formed tribes and villages and clans. And this story is principally about three of those clans, three of those tribes. The first one is like this sort of eco tribe, where they retreated into the woods and they live in harmony with nature. They have they salvage what they can from the old world, but they more or less sort of live as the hunter-gatherers.
Ah, vegans, cool. Wait, hunter-gatherers. If they hunt stuff, they can be vegans.
They're not quite vegan. No, they do hunt and kill animals and things, but they don't rely upon the outside world. They're very much insular. And there's the main characters in this film are three siblings and their father who live in this village. There's two boys and a young man, a sort of an adolescent, and a young woman.
Yep.
And then there's an event happens where their village is attacked after a mysterious aircraft crashes. Bearing in mind there should not be any flight, this aircraft crashes, and they identify it as the Atlanteans, who we know nothing about. They're this mysterious group who we know nothing about. It doesn't really get explained, but they seem to have some sort of technology. And so because this craft crashes near their village, one of the rival tribes who are bent on like world domination, called the Crows, they attack their village to try to get this technology back. And they kidnap one of the sons, and then another son grabs some technology from this aircraft that he finds, and he runs off with that. And then the female is left for dead, but then she survives, and she joins forces with another group called the Crimson, who are like a paramilitary organization.
Ecos, Crows, Crimson.
Yeah. And so the Crows they wear a lot of black makeup. So they paint their faces black. They wear a lot of black leather, and their world is like Berlin. They live in Berlin. That's their main base, but they don't call it Berlin anymore. That's where their headquarters, and they've taken over some of those iconic buildings of the 30s. And they have like gladiatorial tournaments, and they have their clan leaders. They're called the High Lords, and then they've got other lords.
And you said this is in German.
It's in German and English. It's switched between the two quite randomly. And that's where the sort of the cabaret comes in, because it uses some of this sort of iconic 30s imagery, and they're all dressed in black leather. And one of the boys is captured. It's not really a spoiler, but he does end up as like part of a harem for this overlord, this female overlord, as she's called.
Ooh,
and she like goes, "Oh, you're pretty. I'm going to take you into my harem." And then they have to wear makeup and like PVC trousers, and it's a little bit camp. Let's put it that way. But in a sort of a threatening and in a sort of heightened. Everything is sort of monochrome. Everything's black and white. Whereas in the woods, it's all very green and lush, and then in the all these different things.
So Sharon, is it all within a certain area, or is it like the Eco Warriors Norway or somewhere like that? Or
no, it's all in basically Germany. And
right.
then
Okay. Cool.
One of the younger boy who's taken this technology heads south, and then he's been sent on this sort of mission basically, and the eco people are in like the woody Germany.
Oh right, I got you.
And then the Crows, they're centered around Berlin.
So
Yeah.
So what's the Europa of the title?
Basically, there's a war coming. This is the first series of potentially more. There is a war coming, and where the ultimate aim is, the Crows want to take over Europe and consolidate all the tribes under their leadership, and the Crimson people want to fight them. They're like, we're peace loving, we want to have unity, and
the only way we can have peace is by a bloody battle with these people.
Yes, it's this building up towards a massive confrontation between the Crows and the Crimson, and then there's this other menace that's lurking from the east, which we don't know much about. So it's very much world building. It's always trying to setting the scene, and these are dropping these 3 different siblings into different areas of this new world, and then we can sort of follow them.
All right.
So the oldest brother is in with the Crows, the woman is in with the Crimson, and the young lad, he's sort of fleeing down into scavenger land and trying to find the Atlanteans, whoever they are.
All right, so this seems okay. Knowing what I do about your taste, Sharon, this seems like it should tick a lot of boxes for you, because it sounds like it might be based on a book, maybe a bit young adulty or anything like that. But what did you think of it? Performances, story wise, show?
Yeah, I think they did range in quality, I have to say. Some of the storylines you could see coming a mile off. I mean, it was just signposted. And some of the acting, again, went from almost camp to being overacted to being more sort of naturalistic. So I think, to me, it did more verge towards the camp and the heightened reality, rather than them trying to make these characters truly believable. Because all the bad guys are truly bad, and all the good guys they're just, really good. So there are elements of it that I thought were not entirely convincing, but it's entertaining. I think it's sort of something that we've seen, a sort of a European Mad Max before, or a European Hunger Games. It's and sort of like that mashup of a European idea of what an apocalypse would look like, or post-apocalyptic world would look like. It's an interesting take on it. I mean, there is violence, but it isn't all guns. There is guns, but it's more tribalized.
So it is. Would you say it is aiming at a more of a young adult audience?
I think so. It's got adult content in it. Certainly, they do talk about adult scenes, but it's all a bit coy. So even though you've got this harem, and it's more suggested than actually seen, and the violence, again, people get stabbed. But it's that whole like, oh, I think I've been stabbed sort of thing, rather than you seeing.
Well, is it kind of like, the sort of like I don't know, like a 1950s Western violence when someone gets shot and they're like, and they stumble over and there's no blood.
Yes, it's a bit of that. You get a bit of blood, but it's a bit dark, and it's a little bit, and it's a bit like you see like welling over the hand rather than.
Oh yeah.
It's more. So I think it's probably aimed at a young adult.
So how many stars would you give it?
I'd give it a 3. I think it had things that were entertaining about it, but part of me was tempting, because it was subtitles. That was probably one of the reasons why I didn't end up picking up my book or start doing something else when it was on. It wasn't gripping enough to hold in all of my attention. So, but because it was subtitles, I was thinking, I can't really do something else while I'm watching this. But then every now and then it would be in English, and every now and then an English actor would come, and you think, that's definitely an English character actor I know. And you think, so it's a bit of a Euro pudding, as they used to call it. I think there's some people from all over the place in there.
But it's interesting to say about the world. Interesting to say about the world building thing, because this could go all sort of like you say, starting off sort of Germany, and then it could move, couldn't it? It could sort of spread out.
Oh yeah, there's certainly potential for that.
Start heading towards France and stuff, and see lots of more different tribes. So.
Yeah, and I think that's why they called it Tribes of Europa, because I think they do intend to sort of expand it. I think it's what starts with this sort of small conflict between the Crimson and the Crows. I think what is signposted, and it's going to ripple out into a more sort of wider conflict. And then there's this threat from the east. So you think you don't know what that is, whether it's the Russians or whether it's China coming up through Russia, or what it is. But there's rumours coming through the tribes that there's something coming from the east.
Right.
It's intriguing.
It's intriguing because the way you're talking about this and all that, it made me think about a show that I know, Sean, you should have access to because you have access to Apple TV, don't you? Apple TV Plus. Yeah. There's a show on there called C. Yeah, and it is it's essentially in a world. It sounds like a similar setup where it's a bit Mad Maxy. It's a bit in the future. It stars Jason Momoa as he's the main character in it, but it's in a world where something has happened and everybody in the world is blind, and they've been blind for so long. Yeah, they've been blind for so long. They've gone into all sorts of different tribes, and even though they're blind, they still have wars and battles and all that. And they've been blind for so long that that's become the normal. So much so that religions have built up around this whole idea of being blindness and the darkness being a good thing, and then they have and it's blasphemy to talk about people who can actually see. And so they go, ooh, we've heard about these people who can see. They're like, no, it's blasphemy. And there's people who hunt down anybody who can see and kill them because that can be allowed to exist. Because and I think it sounds a little bit like this, or probably a bit more grown up. But one of the things that clued me is when you said that they had a queen who had a harem. There's a queen in here who prays, and when she prays, there is a very it is funny how prayer has developed. Let me put it that way. But Sean, go check out the first episode of that.
Okay. I mean, Wonder.
I know there's loads.
Still, we got I can't wait. How many more episodes are left?
I think there's 2 more episodes. We've had 7 episodes of WandaVision. There's 2 more episodes of WandaVision.
We're just waiting on that one, aren't we?
We're waiting on that one, and now it's all playing to Disney's hand because WandaVision's about to finish, and then cinemas are going to be open again sometime soon, which means that they can kick off big time with all the things that they were planning, which is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, The Eternals, Black Widow, and all. Yeah, Disney are going to rule everything.
Yeah. With the last episode, I was quite chuffed because something I sort of predicted, sort of a series, I guess episode 3. It's come to pass, so I was like,
is this to do with the big reveal at the end of the last episode?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, it's just yeah.
I think WandaVision has developed. It's developed like sort of like reveals like no other show I think I've seen.
Yeah,
like each episode ends and you're like, what? Okay, come on, you can't stop it. And I think that they are very smart in that it shows, when we're talking about viewing habits, and obviously we have watching cinema versus watching at home and binge watching versus, and WandaVision is the kind of show that I don't think can be done in a binge watch way. Like they can't just release everything in one go. I think they have to do it week by week because they drop such bombshells in each week that the whole thing will be spoiled. It just wouldn't be. Yeah. No, I think what happens is that every week they have a moment. So every Friday, I know Friday morning, I need to avoid Twitter because on Twitter it's going to go mad with whatever it is they're going to do in episode 8. I know it's just going to go mad, and so I think if they didn't do that week by week, they wouldn't have that. They wouldn't have that. But anyway, I'm really impressed. And as much as I do not like the business practices, they do all the stuff I like. Anyway, let's talk about Walkaway Joe, Sean.
Okay, Walkaway Joe. Okay, so this was something I looked at on one of the Sky Cinema channels, and this is a story. It's there's a couple of stars in it that I like. Who's the actor that plays Negan? Sharon, you'll know. Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's David Strathairn, who I really, really like as an actor. Anyway, so the story is, it starts off, you've got like a father and son, and they play pool. They're both really, really good at pool. A bit like The Hustler, a bit like The Colour Money. And then the father decides he's just going to get up and leave his mum and his son, and sort of disappears and takes off. So what the son decides to do is he's going to get on his cycle and go to this tournament where he thinks his dad is playing. And on the way, so he gets on his cycle, and on the way he sort of he's nearly going to get in a fight. He's trying to play some pool and be a hustler, and he's only young. He's about, I don't know, let's say 40, 50, 16, something like that. And he's 14. and basically he's going to get in trouble in one of these bars, and then this old dude sort of helps him out. He's a bit of a and he's got a big RV, and so basically the guy gets on his cycle. He's got miles to go, the young lad, and he picks him up, and they sort of develop a bit of a relationship. So he ends up like I guess you would say like a surrogate father sort of thing, although he's a bit older.
Okay.
And so they go on this like road trip, if you will, to go and find his father, and certain things happen on the way. They meet some.
Yeah. You said the two words that I was expecting to hear. Yeah. Road trip.
Yeah, road trip. Yeah. So I like the road in an RV, and there's a few incidents that happen on the way, and there's a bit of trouble here and a bit of trouble there, and it turns out that the chap who's got the RV, who's driving away, he's obviously he's a bit like a Walkaway as well, hence the Walkaway. So he's walked away from his family, basically.
Oh yeah, from a family.
So he's walked away, and this young lad, and they walk away, and as I say, some incidents happen, and it all becomes a bit for the old dude. He, sort of a bit of a redemption at the end and all that. For the young lad, this doesn't quite go quite so well, but it's quite an interesting piece. I wouldn't say it was like mind blowing, but it was enough to watch.
Okay.
Go on. Yeah, go on. What are you going to say?
No, quick question.
Yes.
If this was on at the cinema, would you have watched it?
I probably would have gone to see it, yeah, because, it was one of those in the mould of, leave no trace sort of thing. That was.
Okay, yeah.
But nothing like it. But, it was that sort of thing, because I quite like those not necessarily big blockbuster movies, because sometimes they can be quite hates, the King of Staten Island and some of those other films,
They feel more independent, don't they? And you think,
yeah. I think for me as well, it's like I was thinking, like, if there's some big blockbusters, I really want to go and see those at the cinema. Whereas these type of films, you can actually watch on, on TV on, a decent sized screen, because they're not very cinematic. And even though this is a road movie, it's not really cinematic in any way, or I don't think so. There's not, it's more situations that the couple sort of go through and stuff like that. And obviously he does find his dad, and of course Jeffrey Dean Morgan's playing the dad, and he goes to this old, what do you expect? He goes, what are you like? Some sort of thing, you've been on this journey. And he's like, no, Dad, it was fine. It's just, so it's a bit of a story of, there's a bit of redemption there, and nothing really fantastic about it. Nothing really amazing.
I'm smelling a 3.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're smelling a 3. Yeah, exactly. That's what we can say. It's it's competent enough. It's okay. It's something to watch. I probably, if this had been one of those ones in the cinema, I probably would have gone to watch it, because I would be quite intrigued by it. So you nailed it, Toes. A 3-star. Yeah, I obviously must be coming quite predictable, I guess, huh?
No. It's just the things you were saying and the way you were talking about it, and I don't know. I was like, yeah. This has 3 written all over it.
I mean,
the stench of a 3.
I don't think I don't know who the actor was, the young lad. I really don't know, but you'll probably have a look for me now, Toes, won't you? But I don't think he was particularly good.
Convincing.
Pardon?
You didn't think it was completely convincing?
No,
right?
Not particularly convincing. I don't know. He just didn't work. And even Jeffrey Dean Morgan was just. The trouble is now he reminds me of Negan. Negan. From
everything he does. Everything he does.
And
yeah.
So I think Negan's probably not done him many favours, because he had a leather jacket on again. You know what I mean? When he was like playing pool, and it's like, you might have sort of tried to change a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, it's an okay watch. It's a 3. It's not one I would rush to watch again, but it was okay. It wasn't disastrous.
Yeah, there's a guy called Julian Feder. Never heard of him.
Okay.
Never heard of him, or I don't think I've ever seen him in anything either.
No.
Right. Okay. So, right, we have I'll start talking. I will start talking about I Care a Lot.
Yeah.
And this might get cut off, but don't worry, if you listen to this, you will not know, because of the magic of editing. So, this is a film that made me think we should have a section of our show called "Should Have Been at the Cinema." A bit like, last week we were talking about Greenland and we're like, yeah, this is one of those, this is a COVID casualty. Yeah. It should have been at the cinema, but they held out, and they couldn't hold out anymore, so it ended up on a streaming service. And again, I think this might be an Amazon thing, and there's so many questions going in my head. It's like, okay, at what point does a film go from should have been at the cinema to ending up on a streaming service? And is there some sort of bidding war where different streaming services say, we want that film? And then which streaming service is doing the best at getting films that should have been at the cinema onto their platform? At the moment, I think it might be Amazon, because last week we had Greenland, which was an Amazon film, which surprised me. This week we have a film starring Rosamund Pike, Peter Dinklage, Diane Wiest, Isa Gonzalez, and it's on a streaming platform. and the thing is, and I think Rosamund Pike has gotten to a point in her career where, I mean, her face is enough to get a film a cinema release. Is enough to get a film a cinematic release. I mean, you would say, okay, Rosamund Pike, let's go have a look at that. So this is a film, it's called I Care a Lot. And it is, somebody was saying something earlier about something that in my head made me think of capitalist stuff. I might have been me talking about Disney. I think it might be something you said during the review for Tribes of Europa. But this is a film that is kind of like, it's almost like a business success story. But there's a film with Diane Keaton called Baby Business or something like that in the 80s. Yeah. It was all about how
Baby Boom.
Yeah, Baby Boom. I think it's Baby Boom, and it's all about how she ends up, with this baby and doesn't know what done, and she ends up building a business, and it's all about this sort of like big American dream. Yeah, if you dream it, you can achieve it. And this is what this film is all about. It's about the American dream, quite frankly. Only that the thing that the protagonist is dreaming about is abhorrent. So, so you have Rosamund Pike, and she plays a character called Marla Grayson. And the film starts off and it has like a voiceover from her. She tells you what this is what I'm all about. Her whole thing is like, in this world there's takers and there's people who are being took. And I want to be a taker. I want to be a prey. I'm going to be an effing lioness. And she says, I want to be rich. That is the thing I'm going to be rich. But the way she gets rich is she gets a corrupt doctor friend of hers, to sign an old person over and say, oh, this old person can't look after themselves, they have dementia, all that sort of stuff. And she becomes their guardian. She becomes their legal guardian. Even if they have family, she becomes a legal guardian. And then she can go get their house, sell their house, all that kind of, as she owns all of them. She puts them in a care home and she sells everything underneath them, and then she just takes all the money from that. And it's the kind of film that makes you think, oh my, and the first third of the film, it looks like a very, very shiny Ken Loach film, if you get what I mean. Yeah. You know when you have a Ken Loach film, it's all about, oh my God, this is how terrible things are. This is how the system has failed people. And the first third of the film looks like a shiny Ken Loach film, because it just it's enough to make you think, you know what, I should never grow old, because if I grow old, that kind of stuff can happen to me. It is horrible. It is horrible. But her whole thing is essentially, no, this is capitalism. This is the American dream. These people are just commodities. All these people are dollar signs to me. And it kicks off with somebody who's trying to see his mum in one of the care homes. And he's trying to see his mum, and he is not allowed to see his mum. Legally, he's not allowed to. And she goes to the judge, and they have a judge who is very, very friendly with her, and so just essentially does anything she wants. Will not allow this person to see his mum. And you find that she just keeps doing this thing over and over again. Then she gets in touch with the doctor, and the doctor is kind of like, I think I've got a cherry for you. And that means this is somebody who has no living family, but lives in a very, very nice, expensive house. And essentially, if you do anything to this person, no one's going to come complain about it. And so the whole thing goes into like her latest grift is that she's going to go take this woman who is played by Diane Wiest, and she's going to put her in a care home. She's going to take a house and she's going to sell everything because she doesn't have any family, and no one's going to come for her. But then it turns out that she does have family. And the fact that there's no record of the family becomes a big part of the story. Turns out that Peter Dinklage is her son. Peter Dinklage is part of the Russian mafia. And so the film now becomes this whole thing where it's a battle between the Russian mafia and this con woman who is trying to make as much money as possible. So the first bit of the film is like a shiny Ken Loach realist drama what's the injustice of this system that allows you to lock old people up and legally there's no way they can get out, because all that you need is for somebody to say this person is not doesn't have the faculties to look after their own stuff, and that's it. They're locked up for their family can't do anything, which apparently is a thing in America, which, as I said, makes me just think I shouldn't get old. The second half of the film now becomes almost kind of like a Guy Ritchie caper movie, like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, or this battle of the wills between this guy and the Russian mob, and this. Ooh, where did Sean go?
Where did he go?
Yeah, well, Sean will come back in a sec. So between this guy and the Russian mob and and this woman who is refusing to let this woman go because she's like, why should I let her go? There's all this money I could make from her. How much you have to give me more money for this to not go? And so it becomes sort of like capery and becomes a bit farcical, and like it just keeps building and building and building with one thing happening after another until it gets to a point. And I think it's quite a good film. I think it takes a sort of social problem or social ill as a jumping off point, but then it switches it in the middle of the film to something a little bit more, shall I say, fun? It's a little bit more fun, a little bit more capery, and it ends in a place, because to talk too much is to give you a little bit of the twists and turns towards it. I think one of the good things is the characters in it. So the characters don't do what you expect them to do. You expect somebody to be a little old lady, not a little old sweet lady. You expect somebody to be like, the Russian mafia go, you know what we do? We take people, we put them in the back of a car, we put a bag over their heads. And you've seen so many films that you go, I know what's going to happen here. I know how this goes. And it doesn't go that way. And so I quite like it. It ends in a place that makes you think whenever you see somebody on BBC, like, let's say BBC Business Talk or something like that, it makes you think, what did they do to get that rich? Because this film, the way it does it, the way it teaches, it's kind of like, it's almost sort of like, let's peek behind the business thing and like big business and what actually happens. And this is just an example of a sort of business. And it makes you, the way you end in this film, you end up going, I'm a little bit worried or skeptical as to what rich people have done to become that rich. But all in all, I thought it was a good film. I thought there were really great performances. As I said, I think this is something that should have been at the cinema, and it's a bit of a gem. I'll give it a 4 out of 5, not quite 5, because there are some bits where the plotting gets a little bit convenient and a little bit Hollywood, where you're like, okay, so apparently Sean's internet's cut out, so we'll see if he manages to get back in. So it's so there's a couple of bits where it gets a little bit convenient, where you're like, okay, this woman, I can understand that she's smart, I can understand she's ambitious, but she kind of broke into a mob boss's office a little bit easily, I have to say. It's like she kind of did that a little bit conveniently. Well, that person woke up at that point in time. That was a bit convenient. So there's a couple of things that do, but all in all, I think it feels bad to say that it's great fun when the topic that it's talking about,
the subject matter is not.
Yeah, the subject is essentially looking at people.
It's a black comedy, isn't it? And black comedies are.
I would say it's a black comedy. It's a black comedy,
they do go to dark places, don't they? Often find their humor. Yeah,
and it's just the idea that this is what we're talking about, but we can. That you're talking about looking at people and not seeing them as human beings anymore, but seeing them as dollar signs or pound signs, and seeing them as all she sees when she sees people is how much money she can make from them. So, all right. So I would give it a 4 out of 5 for I Care a Lot on Amazon Prime, but I would totally recommend going to watch that film. Rosamund Pike, brilliant. Peter Dinklage, brilliant. Them facing off against each other, brilliant.
I really rate Peter Dinklage, actually. He's been in, when you consider that he's been in things like Alf and Penelope, and then obviously Game of Thrones, and The Station Agent.
Yeah,
he's been in such different things.
He has been,
someone who you think would be defined by one aspect of their lives.
Yeah.
He's just absolutely not. He refuses to be defined by the fact, of his stature. So I just think he's, as an actor, regardless of anything else, he's just really good.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly with that about Peter Dinklage. Yeah, I think the dude's brilliant. I think it's brilliant, and also Diane Wiest. Diane Wiest, I really like her. She was in she's been in loads of stuff over the years. She was in the Woody Allen movie Bullets Over Broadway. She was
Parenthood.
Parenthood. She was in a TV show called Life in Pieces that I really like. And she's the kind of person who you think, oh, we don't see enough of Diane Wiest on screen. And so when she popped up in this, I was like, oh, so good. And she is so good, especially acting drugged out of her mind. She's drugged out of her mind, but she still manages to be menacing. I'm like, I like this woman a lot. Right, should we try and find what's up with Sean?
Okay. Well, I'll see you later, Shannon. Sorry about that. It's sort of cut out. I was going to go on my phone, but mobile data was done. So,
yeah, these things happen. I wouldn't worry about it. Yeah, we'll catch up with whatever we've got left over another time.
Okay.
We've had a bit of a technical snafu where Sean's internet has deserted him and decided to kick him off. So we're going to end the show here, and we're going to come back next week. And I think we still have a couple of things to talk about there, which is Sea Fever from Sean on Sky Cinema. And Sharon, you have Candy Jar on Netflix, which I'm like, okay, interesting title. We'll see what that is. And I still like the first season of Derry Girls. But we're going to call it a day there. And until next week, when we talk about all those things, it's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye for me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
Thank you very much for joining us on Netflix Cinema. Bye.